So thus far, we have received a lot of positive feedback from people who've read this about how it's helped them see the investigative judgment and sanctuary message so much more clearly. We have received no substantive negative feedback. In other words, nobody has given us negative feedback about what's actually in the article. We have gotten some feedback about the style, the literary presentation, but not the substance. And there's been a little bit of a reaction that is coming. I'm going to share those things with you. So first, let me reemphasize the goal and purpose of this document is to help people experience God's healing in their lives, to remove fear, to remove misunderstanding, open their hearts for God's transforming presence. And to that end, it confronts the imperial imposed law construct by specifically dealing with one doctrine within the Adventist Church that has historically been presented in a legal penal way and demonstrating through design law it's actually a healing and recreation message. So the feedback, one person sent concern that the opening statement where I open stating that there's been a delay in the second coming and Christianity is infected with a lie, imperial law, including the Adventist Church, some felt that was too controversial an opening, that I should have put that later down in the article. And didn't disagree with what it said, just thought it was too controversial. It would be off-putting to some read the first two paragraphs and it's like too scary for them and they can't read the rest of the article. Well, I purposely put it up front because I wanted people to understand what was going to be discussed in this article and focus their attention on the core issue. How do you see God's law? And so that's why I put it up front. But I understand that concern is not without merit. Some people really may have that reaction, and I'm sorry if they do. It was a strategic choice to put it up front. Concern has also been communicated in the call to action section, that it's too aggressive and could sound like attacking or contributing, and it could contribute to conflict. Particularly the section about making it a test of leadership in the church. Some felt that was threatening. And this would cause maybe some to, be negative towards the whole document because of that. But again, I put this here on purpose. That statement there was very thought through, prayed about. The board discussed it, and we wanted to put something there that showed that this is not simply another theory coming along that people read and go, oh, that's nice, and then floats out their life, and oh, that's a cool theory. Whoop, that this is actually some truth that has application in the choices we make and how we live. And so we put it there to cause people to pause, to trigger whoa, wait a second, maybe this is important. So it was put there purposely to stimulate this type of reaction in people and to call the question. To cause people to stop and really consider the way they understand God's law, and thus say basically, stop wavering, like Elijah, we talk about Elijah, stop wavering between two opinions, that God is love, but he is also the source of inflicted pain, he's going to kill you. Stop wavering between those two and pick, is God love or is God the inflictor of pain, suffering, and death? And so this is part of the reason why it was there. Regarding the question of fitness for leadership, consider this example. Hospitals have policies and procedures, rules, requiring surgeons to scrub their hands before surgery. Now, we understand why they do this because of bacterial pathogens, but what if the surgeon didn't understand why? He just obeyed the rules. So he scrubbed comprehensively and thoroughly, and as a result had low rates of infection. But whenever asked why you scrubbed your hands, the surgeon says, well, because it's hospital policy. When a resident says, but what happens if we don't scrub? He says, well, you'll lose your privileges. Would we want this surgeon to be the head of our department? Or head of residency training? Now, both statements were true. It is hospital policy, and you will lose your privileges. Is that the reason for scrubbing before surgery? Now, if the surgeon still thinks that, but scrubs thoroughly and has low infection rates and good outcomes, he can keep his privileges. He can be a member of the surgical staff. But would we want him to be leading the department and teaching the residents? That's the principle involved here. We're not suggesting people shouldn't be part of the church, but do we want people leading and teaching that are teaching, well, because God has a law? And if you don't, well, then you're going to lose your privileges to go to heaven and you're going to be punished. Do we actually want people teaching? And that's the problem in our church. The Bible actually tells us in Hebrews 5:11 through 6:1 that if we don't understand the truth about God's design law, if we are not acquainted, if we stay focused on the do's and the don'ts, then it says we're not acquainted with the teachings about righteousness. So it says, those who stay on milk, on the elementary teachings of repentance from acts that lead to death, are not acquainted with the teachings about righteousness. Well, what's the final message that we claim our church has? It's the righteousness by faith message, right? Isn't that the message? And what is the righteousness by faith message? What is that? A declared legal adjustment or an actual making a change to set us right? So in our example, the surgeon above, the rules approach would teach that righteousness comes from keeping the rules. You wash your hands regularly, like the rules say, and then you're righteous because you're keeping the rules. The design law, the reality knows righteousness comes from actually being cleansed from pathogens, not keeping the rules. Likewise, rule-keeping in Christianity is not acquainted with righteousness because rule-keeping doesn't cleanse the heart from fear and selfishness. Has to be cleansed. That's what righteousness is. So we love our church, and we want our church to be the most beautiful and Christ-like with a message that reveals God's character in all its glory because the people look like Christ in character. And design law, by beholding we become changed, the law of worship, we will not become like Christ in character until we actually see his character and behold it and meditate upon it. And as long as we teach this imperial view of God as an authoritarian dictator, it obstructs the church from maturing and healing. But because of this section, this specific section on using it as a test of leadership, and one other phrase, an increasingly authoritarian church. That was a phrase in the article. The General Conference canceled me from a speaking event in July at Loma Linda University. I was scheduled for the General Conference's World Health Seminar or Summit, and I was going to do one lecture on depression and so forth. But because of this paragraph and this comment, I was canceled from that.
They told you it was because of those?
Yes. Because of these comments. Now, I'm only bringing this up because we've been telling people in our schedule that I'm going to be there speaking for several months because it's been scheduled for months. And so we've been telling people that watch us and follow us online, I'm going to be there. And so I'm bringing this up because I don't think it's fair or reasonable for us to have been telling people that I'm going to be there. And I know some people may come to see me and I'm not there anymore. So you need to know I'm not going to be there if that's why you were coming. That's the primary reason I'm bringing it up. I don't want... So let's treat their decision with kindness, understanding, and respect. They have every right to cancel my speaking. It's their program. They don't have to have me there. It's okay. And let's not launch any type of complaints or campaign of protests. Let's not do anything like that because we believe in the principles of freedom, truth, love, and freedom. So that's okay. Yet we also have the responsibility to evaluate the methods being used and what it actually means. Think this through. If someone wanted to reveal that they were not authoritarian, when the suggestion of increasing authoritarianism has been made, what action might they take? Perhaps restraining one's use of power? Maybe that would demonstrate by conduct and action that that's not how we practice things. And in fact, that's exactly the beauty of the Sabbath. When Satan alleged God was authoritarian, and he made up rules, and he enforced his rules. God gave evidence of creation this week, his power, but then he stepped back and rested and stopped using his power, creating a day for freedom to think. The Sabbath is evidence that God doesn't work this way. This is the beauty of it. And then, so that's one thing. And then we've had a few that have reacted to the article, not given any substantive criticism of it, not actually brought out any evidence from Scripture or Ellen White or any other source that would suggest that what we're saying is not correct. Nobody's done that. But some have reacted both in Australia and here in the States by alleging that Come and Reason Ministries is an, quote, offshoot movement. We're an offshoot. And that I have been disfellowshipped and that I have started my own church. These are the 3 allegations that are coming. Now, all of these rumors and allegations are false. Okay? We are a 501c3 not-for-profit ministry, like any other not-for-profit ministry, including Light Bearers Ministry, Ty Gibson's ministry. It's just a 501c not-for-profit ministry. We are not a church. A church is a different organization legally. It has a different not-for-profit status. So we are not a church, and we have not started a church, and I have not been disfellowshipped, and we are not an offshoot movement. So why do allegations like this come up? Because some people don't want to accept this truth, but they can't refute it because it's true.
They're afraid.
And they're afraid. And so if you can't refute it, then you'd have to divert attention away from it. And you have to discredit the source of it. And so these attacks come to discredit the messenger so that people will never actually read it. Oh, that's from an offshoot group. That's a bunch of, that's a cult. That's cult stuff. Okay? And these types of allegations, he's been disfellowshipped. And so don't read that stuff. Rather than actually saying, hey, let's look at it based on its merits. Ellen White said the truth can afford to be fair. It loses nothing by close investigation. Investigate, show me the evidence, show me how we can improve this, show me what parts need to be removed and what we need to add to make it even more accurate and appropriate and truthful. Show me that. Nobody's done that yet. So I bring this up, so if you hear that from somebody, oh, Jennings has got an offshoot movement, he started his own church, you'll know the facts. We have not started our own church.
Nor do we want to.
Nor do we want to. Okay? I have not been disfellowshipped. I haven't been disciplined in any way. So, all right, let's get to class now.